Hello, everybody. Welcome to the hair DNA or hair analysis webinar. So this afternoon, I'm going to be talking about how the food test actually works. I'm going to give you a little bit of a detail or a little bit of background into my history and how it's really assisted me, how the test actually how we go about getting the test done. And so most of you have not been able to actually click online, which is fine. So I'm going to actually email this webinar to you all so you can sit back when you have a chance today and listen to the webinar and take in all the information and then see whether it's something you would like to do for yourself. So I'll just give you a little bit of a background. So my health journey started actually back when I was in high school. So I had a lot of digestive issues back in high school. And now knowing what I know now, because I'm a kinesiologist, a yoga and meditation teacher, and I've done a lot of health and well-being in my own journey, because in 2014 I hit rock bottom with chronic fatigue and Lyme-like disease and went on a whole health and self-discovery journey because I basically fell in a heap and couldn't get out of bed for 6 to 8 months. And my gut or digestion was a massive, massive part of that. And while I was eating, and I always have eaten really well and eaten a lot of foods that so-called healthy, I was still getting really bad bloating and digestion issues like stomach pains and cramps. Constipation is another symptom that I would get quite often. And so through my health journey, having tried lots of different diets, having done a series of different colonics, having done herb rotating every month, all of this definitely assisted with my healing. But the last little nugget was this hair food DNA test that I stumbled across early last year that really just took my last underlying symptoms. They just practically disappeared. And the reason is because I was eating some very healthy foods like onions, for instance, and capsicum and bananas, which I love, that aren't compatible with my body. Or I've had to reduce them for a 6-month period, which is what we do over this program. And then I've slowly, over time, been able to introduce them. Not that I can eat them every day, but that my body can tolerate them a hell of a lot better than what they were when I was eating them every day, not really realizing they were causing me inflammation. So how the test works is, and it doesn't matter if your hair is dyed, is we just take, it says about a quarter or a half a teaspoon, so about that much. So if you were to grab my hair, it would probably be, this is very thin, so probably about yay much of hair. And it gets sent off to Brisbane. So the founder or creator of this hair analysis is a guy called Dennis who lives in Brisbane. Now somebody's just jumped on the call, so I'm just going to say hello to them. Hello, whoever is there. I'm just going to see if I can chat to them. What happens on webinars is people jump on when they can, because it's lunchtime, so most people are probably working. Okay, cool. So she can hear me. So, Erin, as I was saying, because quite often, and I'm recording this, so you can actually go back and rewatch it. So if you missed anything from the start, I just explained a little bit about my health background and how I found this test. So after the webinar, I will email it to everybody who registered so that you can go and watch it in your own time and then analyse the information and figure out if this test is something you would like to do. So just a little bit of a background, just because you're online, hit rock bottom really bad in 2014 with chronic fatigue and Lyme-like disease, and digestion and food was definitely a big part of that healing journey for me. It also started back when I was a child, so I had a lot of allergies as a child, a lot of tonsillitis and chest infection, so a lot of antibiotics, which also can impact the gut as well. But the main thing that's really helped me in the last sort of 2 years is definitely this hair food testing and knowing the types of foods that are compatible with just my DNA. So not, and I've tried lots of different diets like paleo and the keto, and I am gluten and dairy free. But knowing within whatever diet that really resonates you, what foods are really compatible with your body. I was saying before, like I was eating foods like bananas, which in my first test was not compatible with my body. Onions. My first test also had strawberries, things that I were eating like daily or very regularly that were causing me to stay bloated, to have constipation, to just feel lethargic, and not my upbeat self. So I'll just I started to explain how the test sort of works, but I'll first backtrack a little bit and just say Dennis, who created this test, is actually a naturopath. He lives in Brisbane, so it's an Australian developed test, which is really awesome. So it's not from overseas, even though now he has tests for people overseas because people are loving this test so much. It's been actually developed and created here in Australia, which is fantastic. So we just take about 1/4 teaspoon or 1/2 teaspoon of your hair and send that off to Dennis. And basically our cells of our body all have like an electronic magnetism, or we all have an electronic system going through our body. So all our cells have a bit of an electronic stimulation. Things sometimes attract to it, some things repel. So like, for instance, if we take the electronic signature of our food and take the electronic signature of our cells, basically the test sees whether they're compatible with each other, and if they're not, then they're foods we need to eliminate, because if they're not compatible, then that's what happens, like inflammation and excess mucus, for instance, and over time where symptoms like rashes and diarrhea and constipation, acne, bad breath can all come into play because we're eating foods that are causing inflammation on the insides and for ourselves, affecting all different types of organs and body systems. So what the test does is really make sure, is the banana compatible with my cells on electronic frequency? Because basically we all vibrate, or we all live on a frequency anyway. We're all just made up of energy, and so we're just making sure that what we're eating and putting into our body is actually compatible with our own unique makeup. So it's pretty profound how it works, and I've had amazing results myself and also with a lot of clients. So that's a little bit of background of how the actual test works, and it's just basically using your DNA. It is a little bit different to an allergy test, and they do say if you do know that you have or have been diagnosed with an actual allergy, to still, I'm just going to, someone's just trying to call me on my phone at the same time, to still, even if the test comes back saying it's compatible, that you still need to avoid those foods, because this isn't it isn't an allergy test, it's a compatibility test with your body. So I hope that kind of, and if you have any questions at all, Erin, just chuck them in the type box as I'm going along. So what it does is when you get your report back, it gives you a list. So the general test is called the 500 plus test, which means there's more than 500 types of food and products on the test that would indicate whether you're compatible or not compatible with that test. I'm just going to see if, and I will put a sample of this in the email so that you all can look at the test. But I'm just going to show you. You might be able to see, you might not, because it might be a bit too small. See how the test has some red items and some black items? Well, basically, it goes through all the different vegetables. So this is a sample example. And it says here under green vegetables, for instance, this person can't eat asparagus. They can't eat corn or zucchini. They have issues digesting chicken, pineapple, avocado oil, red wine, white wine, for instance. So you would get a list back saying what foods aren't compatible with your body. And then we would take you, so you wouldn't be allowed to eat those foods for about a 6 months period, because what we need to do, because the body, usually when we're having symptoms like mucus, bloating, constipation, eczema, skin rashes, really bad fatigue, for instance. These are just some examples. The body's quite inflamed. And so we have to eliminate the foods so that the body can settle down and so it can start to heal naturally itself. And then in a 6-month period, we would retest to see what has changed, because it can change, because we're taking a hair sample for our genetic makeup for today. And then as we start to heal, it starts to change. And so in 6 months' time, we'll take another hair sample to see what's going on with your DNA, because you can tell that from your hair, to see what has changed, to see what foods we can reintroduce. Sometimes new foods also come on the list, because sometimes there's like a secondary inflammation going on. So the highlighted red alert things on the first test are usually the ones that are really prevalent or really need to be eliminated right now. And the second level of inflammation sometimes is less subtle, but we still need to eliminate those foods on the next round so that we can allow your body to come to optimum health on its own. I've almost had my third test done. So usually we suggest you do it the first test, and then you do it in 6 months' time to see what has changed. And then I do it every year now after that, because I found this test to be so profound for my healing that I want to know every year, it's like a maintenance thing. A lot of us feel, aren't very good at maintaining our health. And then it's only when we hit rock bottom or things start to go really pear-shaped that we start to invest in ourselves and in our health. Whereas I now take a maintenance approach to my health and well-being, because the more I maintain my health, the less I hardly get colds and flus anymore, where I used to get them all the time. I don't get chest infections or sore throats. My chronic fatigue is pretty much completely gone. Yes, if I'm doing too much in my work or in my business, I get tired, but that's just part of everyday life. But because now I maintain my health and well-being, doing things like the food test and a few other things that I do, acupuncture, kinesiology, regular yoga and meditation, the maintenance is the key part to sustaining symptom-free. So now I do the test once a year to say, okay, so this is where my body is at the moment, and these foods, and quite often onions hasn't changed, chilies and garlic hasn't changed, Some meats can fluctuate. So I have a sensitivity between chicken and like bacon, for instance, and pork. So some tests it will show and some tests it won't. So I just caution how much I eat of chicken and pork. Same with eggs. Eggs can fluctuate with me. So my first test they were on, my second test they were off, but then they were back on my third test. So it just means for me, don't eat eggs every day. It's more of a treat. And watch your symptoms, because your body will tell you when usually the symptoms will come back. I'm just reading your little note here. What do they do for the hair for testing? So I'll just read out one of the frequently asked questions about how the equipment works. It says here, the equipment works on the electronical system of the body. Every cell in the body requires electrical stimulation to function correctly. Incompatible foods and products can interfere with the electronic stimulation. It's kind of what I was talking about before. All cells in creation have their own electromagnetic signature. The equipment is collaborated to a level which displays on, that's just talking about computer and software. So what they do is they have, for instance, they'll have your hair, they'll have a sample of, it's in a vial of banana, for instance, or onions, for instance, and they basically just scan your hair test against all of the products or food items on the list to see whether they're compatible or not. That kind of is how the system, that's kind of how the test works, if that kind of makes sense. So they're always testing whatever the food is or the product is against your hair test to see if there's compatible. So that's how that kind of works. Does that kind of explain what you're looking for, Erin? If you want, you can turn your video on if you would like to speak more. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so it's basically very unique to your DNA because they're grabbing your hair sample, the sample of food, and testing to make sure whether they're compatible or not. And that's basically how it works. But I will go through a few other frequently asked questions that they have on their list, which I can also send an email for you to have a little bit of a read. It says here, is this an allergy test? So it's not an allergy test. It's a compatibility test, which tests for foods and products that are compatible or incompatible with your individual body. Says here, how does the test differ from a skin prick or a blood test? So blood test or skin pricks are related to like allergy type symptoms, which I was talking a little bit about before earlier as well. An underlying allergy or allergic reaction usually is because of a compromised immune system or poor cellular function. So the whole point of this test is to improve the cellular function, the electronic magnetic that I was talking about before, the electromagnetic currency that each cell has. Usually when you have an allergy, that cell or the cells of the body are weak because you're either eating foods or you're putting products into your body, whatever it is that's causing the inflammation. So when we eliminate some of the foods or products that also stimulate that, it allows the cell function to improve and then hence reducing your symptoms. And then it says here, why do we need to eliminate the foods for a 6-month period? And some people it's a longer because it really depends how inflamed or how unwell they are. It says excess inflammation mediates the bloodstream, causing inflammation. So antibodies can live anywhere from 3 to 90 days. So basically what they do is they want the antibodies to be able to reproduce and to heal themselves. So that's why they do it for 6 months, allowing the antibodies and the inflammation to reduce as much as they can. It says that our experience has shown that over 75 to 95% of improvements in the symptoms happen within that sort of 4 to 8 week period. It just says, however, sometimes tissue damage as I was talking about, sometimes it takes a little longer because like if you've been eating some foods every single day of your life that aren't compatible with your body, it's going to take a little while for the body to regenerate. That's why it says we recommend a minimum of 6 months on the program and then retest to see if those foods are still causing you issues. So some items can take a little bit longer. Others, some foods you may not be able to really eat that often, but at least you'll know what those foods are. So that's the beauty of the test, is that then you actually know you're eating foods that energetically or electronically are compatible with your body, which is sometimes part of the guessing. If you've had symptoms for a long time and you've seen, like I did in my health journey, there's been naturopaths, kinesiologists, dietitians, and while they've all helped and I got to a certain level, it was like that last few little nuggets of my health that I couldn't quite conquer, and this test did it, because then I could actually start eating foods that gave me energy rather than depleting it, because that's literally what happens when you eat foods that aren't compatible with your body. And then it says, why can we only eat foods remaining in the black list? Every food or product that is not on the list, so they prefer for the 6 months you to eat only foods or products that are on the list. And there's a whole wide range of varieties. They've also got a Coles list, a Woolworths list, an Aldi list, a babies list, a pet list, an Indian spice list, that you can add to the standard 500 test as well, which I was going to explain a little bit towards the end of the webinar, so that you really know what foods you can and can't eat. I mean, I eat mainly a whole food diet where I cook a lot of our foods from scratch. We don't eat a lot of processed food, which has also helped with my healing, because foods with numbers in them and sugar and all sorts are going to cause a lot of issues for a lot of people anyway, because the body was never really designed to eat processed and packaged foods. So I also, once you get the test done and we start working together, we also go through food rules and food combining and looking at food and how it can be healing to your body. So it's not just here's your test. We work for a couple of sessions on you actually gaining the results that you want, because often the food is a portion of it, but sometimes also food combining and the way you're eating can also be an issue as well. So we look at all angles or all avenues of food, and even sometimes emotionally, because quite often we do eat emotionally to fill a void that has been missing in our lives. So that's also how I work with the food list. So yeah, basically we try and eat only foods as much as we can on the list, avoiding all red items. And then we check in usually every 4 weeks to see how you're going, how you're progressing, and what we need to do for you to reduce the symptoms that perhaps you're having. Do you have any symptoms at the moment, Erin, that are really quite an issue for you? You can write them in the bottom there. And what else did they say in the frequently asked? Oh, so they also said, which I love, that the test, like anything in life, the test is just information, but it's what you do with the information that is going to help your health and well-being. So it's like you can get the test done, but if you don't follow how the test works, or you start, I've had a couple of clients who are like, oh, I'm still getting bloated. I'm like, well, are you following, like, you cutting out, every single item there that's an issue? And they're like, oh, well, I'm still eating capsicum, for instance, and I'm still having milk. It's like, well, if you eliminate those items and you give yourself a 6-month window of seeing how much, eliminating them and seeing how your symptoms reduce, then obviously I can only do so much. I can't force feed you to follow the protocol or to reduce your symptoms. I can guide and support you, but it's ultimately what you do with the information that I give you that's going to help you on your journey. So a lot of people, sometimes it takes them a little while for them to adjust, but usually we get there in the end. So eczema, eczema can be a massive one, and food is a massive part of usually eczema. So definitely this would help him, because he could be eating things that you think are really good for him, but it's causing breakouts and inflammation on his skin, which is just, quite often, like IBS, for instance, is just like eczema, but on the inside of the bowel, it's that irritation, it's that inflammation. But for your son, it's on the outside. So, definitely can definitely assist with that. So any other questions that you have for me at this stage, Erin? I'm just having a look at my notes here for a moment. So some of the benefits of the test is obviously you're getting a food sample that is just compatible with your DNA. Helps to reduce inflammation within the body, definitely within the cells. Allowing you to work on your health and well-being. Definitely increase my energy and my motivation. Can also help with mood swings, and because if you think about it, if you're eating foods that aren't compatible with your body and your body feels inflamed, you probably get quite irritable or quite angry quite easily as well, because that's a natural reaction when there's a deterrent or an irritant going on the inside, and your emotional body definitely picks up on that as well. Repairing tissue and cell damage, kind of what I talked about before, and just generally having a better quality of life, which I've definitely found myself. So I'm just looking through, and some of the symptoms that it can help with, I'm just going to explain which is on the list that I have to send off to them when we have a consult anyway. Acne, rosacea, like behavioural issues, arthritis, asthma, bad breath, bloating, brain fog, chronic fatigue, celiac disease, constipation, depression, diarrhea, excess mucus, eye infections, gas, headaches, migraines, hives, irritable bowel, joint pain, PMS, muscle aches and pains, nausea, persistent cough, psoriasis, itchy skin or rashes, reflux, restless legs, sinuses, hay fever, sleep disorders, tiredness, thrush, eczema, and whatever else you care to tell me, and we write that down as well. So in terms of what it costs, so the standard 500 cost, the standard 500 test costs $252, which that just gets sent to Dennis. So that price is set. I actually don't have any leeway in changing the prices of the actual food test. Usually I charge $75 for my first half an hour initial consultation, and then we do an hour usually afterwards. But if you decide today that you would like to have the food test done, probably I'll keep, and I will, this special will happen, be consistent, or will stay until tomorrow night, because I've got another food webinar tomorrow night at 7:30. So with the test and my consultation, I'm doing a special for $295, so that's an over $30 on my consultation saving. And I can do payment plans if you need as well. And then there's add-ons. So usually the Aldi, Coles, Woolworths tests cost $30 on top of the $252. The baby list is $265 included with the $252 $500, and then with the Indian, if you want the $500 plus the Indian, it's $302. The animal list, because some people have animals that have allergies and rashes and all sorts of things, is $182. And then retests are $190, so they're cheaper in 6 months' time. So that's the costs involved. So while, people may say that it's expensive, peace of mind for $300, and getting to the root cause of your health issue. For me, and I spent about $30,000 on my health when I originally got sick. So $300 is nothing compared to what I have spent in the past, and I'm able to actually be here today to talk to you about this, which and it is cheaper than skin prick tests as well. Yeah, it's cheaper than most allergy tests in general. And you're getting a report to tell you what you can and can't eat, and you can use that in your shopping. So it's not, in all scheme of things, it's not overly expensive. But for me, you can't put a price on your health and well-being. And if you've had symptoms that you've had help with but haven't really got the results that you've been looking for, food is a massive part of what goes into our bodies every day. So it's definitely a major part of the health puzzle. Obviously there's environment and emotions and a few other things which I also work through as well, but food is a massive part of that health puzzle, and a great place to start. So any other questions that you have for me, Erin, or anything else that you would like to know? As this is a webinar that I'm going to be sending to everyone who registered for today's webinar, any questions you have, you can email me. I will shoot you a copy of the 500 list, the Coles, the Woolworths, the Indian, for instance, so that you can have a look. You can all have a look at what lists may be applicable or may be relevant to your lifestyle and where you shop. And if it's something you definitely would like to have done, the next steps from here would be to email me back, and we could book in for an appointment to get the ball rolling, which we can do. Most of my food tests I do over the phone, so you don't have to see me face to face, because I'll just send you a food test kit. You'll take a sample of the hair and send it back to me. The first consultation will just go through the symptoms, your history, and what's been going on for you. We'll send off the test, and then we'll have a consultation once the test is back, and we'll go through the test and also food rules, food combining, and a few other things around that is also going to help boost the information from the food test as well. So that's kind of how it generally works. And then we have a look at the maintenance and how well you're doing moving forward from there. So usually we just check in a month after, and sometimes we might not talk for a couple of months and then come back just before the 6-month mark and see how everything's going. So it's very individualized to the person and what's going on for you in your health and well-being and in your life. So if we have no more questions, thank you, Erin, so much for attending. And for the other, because there's quite a few of you that registered that couldn't attend, I will just email you the webinar, and I look forward to talking to you all. Feel free to send me any questions, to call me, whatever it is that you may have. And I look forward to working with you and allowing you to have the vibrant health and well-being that you all deserve and that we all want. So see you, everyone. Bye.